Okay, good morning. This is our call to order for the Budget and Finance Committee of Peralta Community College District. It is 9:04 p.m. Thank you for joining. We're excited to have this committee. And right now, can we do roll call, please, Maisha? What, Maisha, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Trustee Bill Withrow.
Yes.
Trustee Napoli Abella Reese.
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
Here.
Tom Renbarger.
Here.
Adil Ahmed. Not in. Okay. I believe that is it.
Okay, thank you, Maisha.
You have one.
Great. Let's go to approval of the agenda. Are there any additions or clarifications that need to be made or any shuffles before we move forward?
Can we have the agenda shared on screen?
Sure. Okay, sorry, gotta get to the right screen here. There we go. All right. Does everybody see it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Where's our Vice Chancellor for Finance?
Yeah, he didn't, he's not here. Let me see if I can try to get him online.
Yeah, we need him here.
Thank you. Are there any changes to the agenda now that everyone, excuse me, can see it? I can't hear you, Cindy. Okay, great. Cindy in the chat says, I'm sorry, President Reese says in the chat that she has no changes. Do you have any changes, Trustee Withrow?
No, the one I'm looking at is reviewing the charge,
Yes,
and the scope and the strategy and timelines, the goals and policy discussion, the 21-22 budget quarterly finance report, and the audit, both internal and external audits, which I think, you know, that's a good scope. We're not going to be able to get through all of that, obviously, today.
right.
But we can, I would hope that we can take each one of those and say, this is what we want to do with the committee over time and set goals and timelines and strategies, if you will.
Right.
So that we accomplish our mission.
Thank you. Hearing no changes, let's go ahead and approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second. Thank you, Maisha.
I'm bringing in Adil right now.
Oh, great, thanks. No discussion for President Reese. So let's go ahead and do approval of the agenda, please.
Did we not just approve it? We're going to do roll call. There we go. He got in. There we are.
I'm sorry, I went somewhere else and I couldn't.
No worries.
Okay, I'll do roll call now.
Let's go ahead and do roll call just to be safe. Thank
you. Trustee Bill Withrow.
Yes.
Trustee Napoli Abella Reese.
Yes.
Trustee Delphine Polk.
Yes, thank you.
Adil Ahmed.
Yes.
And Thomas Renbarger.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Can we go ahead and have the agenda put back up on your screen, Maisha?
Okay, I'm sorry.
Thank you. No worries.
Didn't know it went away.
Thank you. So let's move on to 2.1, which is a discussion of committee charge. Let's go ahead and start with Trustee Withrow.
Yeah, I've submitted a charter, and I labeled it as the Audit and Finance Committee, and let me get to that just pretty quickly here. Budget is to me, as a finance guy, is as a part of finance, but we have two things that we have to look at.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I did skip over public communication. I apologize.
That's all right.
So 1.4 public communication, I believe we have Jennifer Snosky.
Yes, I'll need to.
I apologize, Trustee Withrow.
Move her over. Okay. Here she comes.
Good morning. I'm so sorry. I did not intend to give public comment, actually.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to be here for the webinar, and there's not a way to differentiate. So good morning. Thank you.
Good morning.
And carry on. I'm sure I'll have public comment in the future. Sorry,
No worries. Thank you, President Janoski. Let's go ahead and continue on with 2.1, which is the committee charge. Go ahead, Trustee Withrow.
Yeah, getting to the name, the reason I use audit and finance, which is pretty standard, by the way, throughout the state, but they're really two different things. Finance is internal, where we're looking at the data. The other is the audit function, which is the external auditors, and as well as the ACCJC and state and whatever, but it's primarily the external auditors that we need to deal with, as well as the internal auditor. And so that's the reason I use the term Audit and Finance Committee as opposed to Finance and Budget Committee. The mission and roles and responsibilities, I think, are pretty standard. What the committee does is a significant challenge, and it's a significant charge, and making things come alive and doing it in a fashion that I don't see us being able to do this, at least until we get moving, without having a meeting once a month. And I'm not looking for work. I've got a lot of things I do, 9 different civic activities, as well as 3 business kinds of things. But we're, as a governing board, and I think people would concur with this, we're behind the power curve in terms of really understanding the resource allocation system that we have, both the funds coming in and how they're going back out again, and how that we're allocating it throughout the various PUCAs to attempt to accomplish our overall mission. And compounded with the fact that we're, with the enrollment way down, we've got a structure, both in terms of people and in terms of real estate, that far exceeds what we need for the enrollment that we currently have. And so, you know, we have to look at that. We have to look at that. You know, simple things like, I mentioned before, like on real estate, we have some beautiful real estate, very prime real estate, and it's not being used in terms of time and whatever. And I think we need to look at it in terms of how can we lease out the space, at least temporarily, to bring in revenue for that, to, you know, at a very minimum to cover the cost of maintaining it. But I think that just an awful lot of our real estate can be leased out for educational kinds of ventures, if you will, big corporations, cities. University of California is backed up. They don't have, well, they may have now, I don't know that. I don't know where they stand now, but Historically, they've been short of space. Anyway, I don't want to carry that too far down.
No worries. Thank you, Trustee Withrow. I see President Napoli Bella-Reese. Do you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. Trustee Withrow, those are good points. I'll just clarify a couple different parts of it so that as we continue the conversation on the charge, we do remain focused and we respond to all the needs and how we really want this committee to go forward. Mm-hmm. Number one of the reasons why we didn't call it an audit and finance committee or an audit and budget committee is because when we talked to a few different individuals, including legal, what we had realized was that the audit and the budget committees are usually separate. And so what we want to do at this particular point is we want to ensure that our budget committee is focused on kind of doing the in-depth work of the budget analysis and the budget development rather than looking at the audit because they're supposed to be separated. That's number one. Number two, sorry, I just went up the stairs. Number two, the other item that we want to be careful to do is we have to ensure that what we're doing at the committee level is something that's going to be an extension of the work that's happening at the board level. We will not be looking at the committee level about real estate and about renting it out and about any of those different things, because we want to ensure that our conversations and our committee work is going to be contingent on doing a deep dive on what the board has already been looking at rather than the reverse. So our charge has to be much more focused. Our charge has to be very limited. And our charge at this particular point is looking at our budget, developing our budget, but not necessarily, but keeping our scope rather clear and rather acute so that we are in line with what the board's knowledge already is and how we can maybe help continue the conversations that we wouldn't be able to efficiently do at the board level and make those presentations to the board. What we should not be doing and what we will not be doing is we will not be thinking about those particular presentations. I'm a little concerned about the real estate situation. That's not something that this committee will be doing at this point. And let me catch my breath, sorry.
Thank you for that. I think that's really helpful. Do you have any other suggestions on specific charge, President Reese? I think that's that your insight to this is super helpful.
Yes. And I would actually love to hear also if both Thomas Remberger as well as Adil have any items that they think could be helpful as we look at our charge. Mm-hmm. So we have an initial charge that I sent to all of us, I believe. And do you have that with you perchance? It's the charge for the budget committee. Do you have that available to you, Tiana?
Not.
Okay.
Let me look.
So it's not a formal charge, but here are some of the items. And I think I also sent this to you, Trustee Withrow. Do you have it with you? Do you want to just share it? And I think, Trustee Withrow, what we could do is we could bring them together so that, again, it's focused, it's limited, but it responds to some of the ideas and some of the points of your discussion. But at the same time, it doesn't veer us away from our priority at this current moment, but also the limited focus that we want to remain, that we want to ensure that we stay within.
Would it be helpful for me to put the charge in the chat?
I can stop sharing and you can share.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maisha.
No problem.
Okay. So, okay, I'm sharing my screen here. So, can everyone see this?
Yes.
Great. So I'll give everyone a chance to just review it. So the charge here is increasing the efficiency of the Board of Trustees by performing time-consuming research on its behalf, improving clarity by providing a platform for detailed questions not conducive to the flow of monthly business meetings, promoting policy of transparency of the PCCD budgeting process and fiscal matters through detailed discussion of budget and finance policies in an open forum, providing review of policy for preparing projected budget frameworks that will prepare PCCD to operate without hold harmless, ensuring the Board of Trustees is supporting BAM revision, SERP implementation, and FON alignment, fostering an environment of collaboration by communicating recommendations to the Board of Trustees, and lastly, informing the board with the Chancellor's guidance on these and other matters of finance and budget. I'll go ahead and stop sharing. Are there any other additions to this that we think are appropriate? President Reese, I believe that Thomas has a question in the chat.
Yes, yes. And so this is the Employment Retirement Plan, sir. So I'm not sure if the question was as to what the acronym.
That's all I was wondering, what it stood for.
Yes, yes, that. And again, this is an opportunity where I would love to hear what you're thinking, Thomas. Would love to hear what you're thinking, Adele. And with there's one of your discussion points, or a couple of your discussion points that I think are integrated there, a couple of them, but please let us know how much more you'd like to modify some of that. So this is an opportune time for all of us to chime in.
I think President Reese, you cover everything. I think this charge is very important, and I like it the way it's being done. And I really appreciate that because everything's covered in here. And I think moving forward, we can work together as a team and, about these charges that we have now.
Great, great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the charge is pretty good also. I guess the only question I would have is, if this group is going to be doing, a certain amount of work, what's the mechanism for reporting out? Is it just something that will be reported to the board? Are there other people or are there groups that we would be reporting to? And I guess yes. Once we started doing things, what then, right? How do we let people know?
Fantastic. Chair Polk, may I?
Please.
So this is I think, and we're certainly going to concretize this, but the mechanism that we are envisioning, and again, Trustee Withrow certainly chime in, is that what we would like is we would definitely like updates from both of the two of you, from your respective meetings, and you will also probably present, you're the liaison to the PGB, PPG, and then you're also the liaison to finance. And so we would get updates from you. If there are any documents that we need that emerge from our conversation, our protocol and our mechanism will be to be asking the Chancellor to talk to Vice Chancellor Adil about those particular pieces or those particular documents. So there will be no having the staff do the work. But of course, I think part of the board policy that we have currently is that the staff would be, that Vice Chancellor Amid would be taking the notes for the meeting. In terms of the report out, it would be minutes. So we have it agendized and the minutes would come out. And I would also hope that you would be able to go into your respective groups and report out to those respective groups the conversations that we had here. And sure, absolutely, they can watch the videos, but I think that there's also something to be said about making those relationships a bit more intimate and a bit closer and aligning them so that you can be the person that goes back and forth between the committees. And the same with Adil, if you can go back and forth between what is happening in your area, what are some of the concerns that are brought up in the committee, and so on and so forth. So the mechanisms and the protocols, we're going to formalize, and we're going to formalize that in a document so that, again, we're very limited and we're also very precise. Everything that comes out at our meetings, according to both the conversation that I had with the Chancellor, but also following our AP, will be presented to the board. BP and the AP will be presented to the full board. And I think our current vision was that the chair, in coordination with the staff, And this could be even a tripartite thing, I believe, where the chair, the staff, and Thomas, if you would like to be part of it, you present to the whole board so that it is really a communal, collaborative process to ensure that we're all on the same page. But everything that is talked about in this meeting has to be presented to the whole board. And we don't vote on anything in this meeting. We are, again, for purposes of efficiency and diving in deeply and really understanding things that we can't because of how short and how compacted our meetings are. That is the purpose of this. Therefore, all of the in-depth analysis and such would be presented to the full board.
Thank you for that, President Reese. We also have a question in the chat from Jennifer Snosky regarding the parcel tax. Would parcel tax oversight be in this committee, is the question.
A good question. That's a good question. It could be in the student success accreditation. And I think that that is something that we can put in a parenthetical at this moment as a possibility, but not quite sure. I don't know if that's a good enough response for you, Jennifer, but what do you all think? What do you, Trustee Withrow, what do you share?
Yeah, Trustee Withrow, I'd be curious to see what you would think.
Well, there's already a body, if you will, that overlooks that group. Yeah. But it's part of the, it's part of the overall resources that we have coming in. And we have very strict guidelines on what we can do and how we can do it using those particular funds. So I don't think it can be excluded, but I would feel uncomfortable having this trustee committee be viewed as an oversight of anything, quite frankly. It's more making things come alive. I think that Cindy mentioned that in terms of her focus, that it's to make things come alive in terms of what the governing board sees, understands, and relates to, but not an oversight.
And then maybe I'll add to that we do obviously have an oversight committee specifically for the parcel tax, but I do think that since it is part of the budget, it is something that could be on our list of discussions, and of course would be part of Vice Chancellor Amid's update as well as Thomas Remberger, and then it could be part of our discussions. Sure.
I agree. It's hard to have a budgeting meeting without talking about that.
Yes.
Adil, you have your hand up?
Yes, so it's gonna be one of my function to update you on the parcel tax when we do the budget. So I'll bring that for the committee.
Great, perfect. Thank you. Okay, is there any other discussion of our charge before we move on to the next budget? I'm sorry, the next agenda item? Is everyone clear on what our charge is as a committee? Okay, seeing no.
Can someone send me that document when you get a moment after?
Yes, I will. Thank you. Okay, great. So moving on to 2.2, agenda items of priority or interest from the board members. I'll go ahead and let President Reese go first.
Let's see. Why don't you have Trustee Withrow go first?
Okay. Go ahead, Trustee Withrow.
Yeah.
Not to throw you under the bus.
What are we doing here? I missed
any
that.
agenda items of priority or interest from the board members? Anything beyond what we've already discussed? I'm just leaving space for that.
No, I don't particularly concur with the. It's not a voting kind of thing, but whatever. I don't particularly concur with the array of charges that you've laid out, and I don't concur with the exclusion of the audit function. I think that's a very serious exclusion, but neither here nor there.
No. I think that that's an important point.
Yeah, we should discuss it.
Yeah, let me be clear. So when we were talking to legal in many different bodies, the audit committee and the budget committee are two separate committees, and we are more than welcome to create an ad hoc audit committee. That does not mean, though, that we don't talk about the audit and that we don't actually converse and discuss the audit. Because, for example, when the final audit is submitted or given back to the district, we're going to have Vice Chancellor Amid definitely talk about that. And we're going to have to discuss it because it is an important part. If we wanted to, let's say, have ensure that the action plan is being implemented, or at least have monthly or bi-monthly discussions about the action plan once we get the audit, that's not something that the budget committee could do. An audit committee could do that, but they have to be kept separate for purposes of integrity. So we could have an ad hoc audit committee, but it's got to be separate from the budget committee. So we can certainly do that if we wanted to do that, absolutely, but they've got to be separate. Does that make sense?
I don't agree with that, but that's neither here nor there. There's a lot of things going on. To me, the audit is a function that the board needs to know more about in terms of what the external auditors are coming up with.
Yes.
And this
yes.
board does not understand it. And to me, that's a primary role of.
As I understand it, though, President Reese, we would get the results of the audit, right?
Absolutely, and we're discussing it. The reason why it might be a conflict of sorts, and I think this is why certain bodies usually have a separate committee for their ad hoc as well as their budget, is because you want your audit to be separated from the budgeting committee. You want the audit to be separate. The committee that's going to be looking at the audit and the audit functions and the implementation of the corrective action of the audit to be separate from the budget development, the budget expenditures. You want that to be kind of a separate entity. You want to keep the integrity of both. You don't want them in the same house necessarily. And so, but to your point, if your point is that we want to make sure that the board understands what is happening with the audit, that the board understands our audit material weaknesses and our significant deficiencies, absolutely. We're going to be looking at the audit and we're going to be having a discussion about the audit, and that is going to be brought to bear in a presentation to the full board, because this is where we can talk about it. In terms of the corrective plan, that of course we will have as we go forward for the next year to ensure that the significant deficiencies and the material weaknesses are taken care of in a timely manner. That would not be the budget committee. That would be a separate committee, and that would be the audit committee. But to your original point, which is the board needs to understand at a micro and macro level the significance of our audits and how we respond to them, that is something that we will be discussing and we can be presenting to the board. Separately, if we want to make sure that the corrective action plan is going along very well, and we want to meet more often to make sure that the deficiencies are being taken care of in the way that they were laid out and presented, that would be an ad hoc committee. That would be a separate committee just for audit.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
I hear you. I don't agree with it, but I hear you. One of the things that concerns me, a lot of things concern me in the financial area, but one of the things that concerns me is that when you're talking about budgeting, you're really talking a resource allocation system. Mm-hmm. And we've got a situation where we have a plethora of laws and regulations we have to comply with. And you may look at something and say, gee whiz, we ought to be doing it this way, this way, this way, but we don't have flexibility. The laws of that we come under the cognizance of determine how we do something, whether we want to do it or not. And I don't know how we can separate the two. I've never, whether it's in a public sector, both the federal and whatever level, or in any of my public corporations that I work with, have seen where they've separated the audit function and the resource allocation function. It's too integrated, but whatever. I mean, you know, I'm one of three here, so.
I just want to add. I just want to add. I totally agree with President Reese. I think we should separate the two. One, the audit committee should be the one that kind of follow up with the efficiently with the action taken for the corrective action. But at least I can come here and update you about the audit. But it's always important that we have an audit committee that look at all those corrective actions to make sure that we did what we're supposed to do, and it should be separated from this this body. But at least I'm gonna update you on the audit findings and what corrective action we took. But it's always better that we have a different ad hoc committee that only focus on the audit. That's my opinion.
President Reese, would it be appropriate to put this on an agenda item for a future meeting?
Yes, yes,
Great.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's go ahead and do that.
Okay. And that actually now, if I may, I could
please.
add a few items for the agenda.
Great.
So Vice Chancellor, we're also going to be talking about the audit at some point, because you should be getting it in the next few days, right? Or so. And so maybe at the next meeting, talking about the findings of the audit, the update rather, would be good. As well as it would be good to get updates to our committee about the PBC meetings and about the RAM allocation, just to make sure that, again, we are getting all of the information as much as possible at all of our meetings. Anything that is finance related, anything that is budget related, anything that is that it all touches on that. If we could get those updates, because I think that is going to be important discussion points and material for most of our meetings. So those are some of the agenda items that I want to ensure we are covering.
Great.
In our forthcoming meetings.
Yes, I agree with you, President Reyes. I'm gonna update you. And at this time of point, we already sent all the budget for the colleges to review. And I will let you know on our next meeting. Unless you want me to update you right now, I can update you, because we're working on the budget 21-22. We already sent the discretionary expenditure to the colleges for review and how they want to reallocate those discretionary expenditures. And we sent also the position filled, unfilled, vacant position to the colleges for them to review it. And once they approve those positions and discretionary, we're gonna load it to the system. So we are ahead of the game. And also, I wanted to present to you today, I just did some calculation of our 21-22 TCR, total computation revenue, and we are at hold harmless at $12 million. Our 3 years average is declining because of 17-18, we had 18,000 FTS. Now we're starting with 18-19 with 15,000, and 2021 we're at 13,000 FTS. So we're declining so fast. And so things that we're gonna talk about, how we're gonna resolve those issues when we're gonna be without hold harmless. So I will update you as much as I can, and I'm working on that. And if you have any questions or anything, you may let me know, and I will provide you anything you guys request. I'm here to explain you everything that's happening in transparency. That's what I wanted to add for you. And we're still working on the budget, and I think we are. And I presented this to the BBC meetings last meeting. Tom knows about it, and I just give them a snapshot about where we're standing with the TCR. And yeah, so I will do anything I can to give you an update.
Great, thank you very much. President Reese, do you have any additional agenda items?
No, no. I do have questions, even though it's not part of the agenda. His update wasn't part of the agenda. I do have questions to that later on, but maybe we can follow the agenda and then we can go back to that.
We can definitely discuss this at a future meeting. I think it's really important, but yeah, we don't have it on the agenda just yet. Right. Are there any other agenda items to discuss under 2.2? Hearing none, let's go ahead and go to 2.3. Trustee Withrow, I was hoping you would talk a little bit more about the charter that you drafted and as it relates to short and long-term visions for this committee.
Well, if the decision of the committee is to not be involved and to cast out the audit process, I have a hard time relating to to what this committee's intending to do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I reviewed the charges that you talked about here. I just don't see it functioning. I really don't. I don't see it in a cohesive manner where we can make a resource allocation system and the laws that surround it come alive for the board. And to me, that's the role,
sure,
is to make it come alive for the governing board. There's a lot
Are
of
there
time.
any short or long-term visions that you would want to include as part of this for this committee? And I have the audit as a discussion item for our next meeting as well.
I saw that. That. Yeah. No, I guess not.
Okay. President Reese?
Sure. This is related to the short-term and long-term. As I do look at the charter, D, E, F, G, that Bill had written, D, E, F, G are specific to the audit, but all of your other items, Bill, are specific to the budget. And so I think that could be integrated into our fuller, more formal charter if Chair Pope believes that would be appropriate. And I do believe that you captured in this charter, Trustee Withrow, much of what we will be talking about and our short-term and our short-term vision for sure. I think long-term, what we desire to do, and you and I, Trustee Withrow, have had conversations about this, what we desire to do is really, and I know that I'm using the same words often, but I think that this is kind of the crux of the creation of this committee. We want to make sure that we are being fiscally prudent, that we are not glossing over the budget and the budget development and our expenditures and revenues and the execution of the resources and allocation of the resources. But we want to make sure that we are digging at the appropriate level, very significantly into it and understanding it well, and ensuring that the budget allocations are according to our policy and they are appropriate, fiscally appropriate and fiscally prudent. That's our oversight. And I believe that both our short-term and long-term vision is to ensure that that is activated as a component of our work. There is no way that at a budget meeting where we only have 30, 45, an hour to talk about the budget, are we ever able to do such a thing? And yet we want to ensure that we are meeting our responsibility as fiscal agents correctly, but we haven't been able to do that because you can't really talk about the budget in that way. And so I think that this does materialize and bring to fruition our short-term and long-term vision of ensuring that we can help bring this district to a point where it's fiscally responsible. And we're doing that through this particular committee. I think our long-term vision would be to be able to use our resource allocation model in such a manner that, number one, prepares for the eradication of our SEFF, our student-centered funding formula. We need to be able to stand on our own two legs, but we need to kind of prepare for that particular moment. We want to be able to ensure that the resource allocation is such that it is going to the students, that it is going to enriching the programs that we wanted to. I mean, we just want to make sure that our allocations are where we want them to be and not kind of placed in areas or allocated in areas where they shouldn't be, or they're not most productively used, not efficiently, but most productively used. And I think that this is the kind of work and the kind of discussions and the kind of collaborations in a transparent way that's going to allow us to do that. Because at the end of the day, I believe all of us want to get the district to a point where it is fiscally responsible, fiscally enriched, and fiscally appropriate and focused on student success, student learning, and just having a very robust district and 4 colleges, or 4 colleges with a district supporting the 4 colleges. And I believe that that is our long-term vision. Mm-hmm. But would love to know, Trustee Withrow and Trustee Polk, or Chair Polk, if we are on the same page as it relates to that.
Go ahead, Trustee Withrow. I don't have anything to add. I think that was said really well, President Reese. I appreciate your words.
Yeah.
And as far as
I concur with that. I concur with the statements that Trustee Reese talked about. When we're getting both, you're talking about a current snapshot, current type thing, and longer term, short term, long term, however you want to put it. That could be a very significant consumption of our time, effort, and energy. Just looking at that, because we've got, without getting into a whole lot of details, the support mechanisms so that we aren't crashing, if you will,
yes,
provided by the state. But at some point in time, they're going to go away, and we know what that is and whatever. Without getting into the definitive terms, but I don't think we do a good job of looking at it and saying, what do we do if, in fact, it goes away and we haven't moved up our enrollment or haven't increased our recent revenue coming in? What do we do? And normally with this kind of a committee, you would look at it and say, if this occurs, this is what happens. If this occurs, this occurs, this occurs. And we need to do that before we crash, if you will. And there's an awful lot of these things you don't want to, because we're a people organization. We got people's lives at stake here across the board. And you don't want to come in and say, okay, now we got to cut 25%.
Exactly.
We can't do that. We've got to get to the board with the kind of information that they need to make a responsible decision on when we start cutting down. And there's no doubt in my mind, looking not only at Peralta, but throughout the state and the state of the economy and what our four-year universities are doing and what they're experiencing. Well, like Mills College is going out. You know, I mean, this is not an easy environmental set, not only just now, but, you know, for the foreseeable future. It's going to be a very, very difficult financial environmental set. And so we need to look at it and say, you know, what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, what ifs.
Yes.
And what the probabilities are, and then and feathering them down so that it's, again, we don't wake up one morning and say, well, we're going to cut 25%. You know, we're a people organization. We can't do that to people. We got to look at it from the standpoint of setting the stages, and hopefully that's what this committee can do, is highlight it, not necessarily provide the answers, but provide the information so that the governing board, as well as all of the constituencies, can come up with a reasonable way of adjusting, and so we're not kidding ourselves.
Thank you. President Reese?
Yes, I absolutely agree. And I do believe that one of the complaints that I often hear is that the district never plans. It's always happening. So actions and decisions are always made very hurriedly and almost later than they need to be made. And so I'm hoping that the committee can position itself in such a manner that discussions can be both looking at the moment, but looking simultaneously forward. And it occupies, and if the committee can occupy the space as a venue for discussions, for the different scenarios, for discussions as it relates to the economic landscape and how it's going to be, how it can both change where Peralta is and where Peralta can go, with the input of all of as many constituencies as possible, I think it could really position itself as another committee as a committee that helps us plan, that helps us have these discussions, rather than continue a way of being where decisions are made abruptly, sometimes without the forethought and the planning.
Thank you.
Given that the other item that we probably would need to hear about at some point, and I don't know when our next meeting will be, but I know that's on the agenda too.
The next agenda item.
Okay, good.
But yeah,
would be, you know, for example, the governor's budget, and how that affects our current budget, and how that's going to affect how we go forward. If I think it's better than we anticipated that it would be, but those are the kind of inputs and updates and analyses that we also want to be thinking about and doing.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add anything before we move on to scheduling? Okay. Let's go ahead and discuss scheduling. One thing that I think that Trustee Withrow brought up earlier was having monthly meetings, and I think that that's important at this stage, since you know, this is a committee that hasn't met in some time, so as I understand. So I do think it's important for us to have a monthly meeting if we're able to do so. And I'd love to hear other people's thoughts.
Good point. I am good with that. Okay. Here's my feedback though. We want to, because we have staff and because we also have our Thomas Renberg as our representative, we also want to make sure that we are respectful of everybody's time, right? And sure. We certainly understand how much work everybody has to do outside of this committee. So I would love to hear Vice Chancellor Ahmed as well as Thomas, and let us know what your thoughts are additionally as it relates to the frequency of our meetings. But I do agree with both Chair Polk and Trustee Withrow that it would be good to, especially at the beginning, to capture this momentum and to really start getting to the work. But I also want to be respectful of other people's time.
I think I'm agreeing with the monthly meeting. Is very important that we have this monthly meeting so we can update you, and we have time to take actions on some stuff that we're gonna present you, so you know what's happening. I will make the time available for myself to be on this monthly meetings, and I just want to update you. I thought I would have to do a presentation today, so I prepared the TCR. I present the budget proposal from the governor, right? So I made everything ready. So that's fine. But I'm gonna be available to be part of this committee and in a monthly basis, so we can update you.
Thank you so much.
Chair Polk, may I ask a question?
Please do.
It was appropriate to ask a question. I apologize, Vice Chancellor Ahmed. I didn't want to put you on the spot, and I didn't get the confirmation from Chancellor Walter that you could do it, that you were going to be doing updates. I'm wondering if it would be possible, if you have a written version, if you could send that to us, or yes. or we could put it with our documents. How about that?
It's not the Chancellor's fault. It's my fault. I didn't tell the Chancellor or anything, so I just prepared it and I said, okay, I'm gonna share with the committee the budget proposal from the governor and the TCR calculation based on our P1 certification. But I can send you that through email.
Okay, that would be great. And we probably should post that. Maybe let's consult with legal, but we should probably post that on the minutes for this, just so people have access to that as well.
Okay, so I will send it to Maisha so she can help me with that.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Thomas, did you have? Would love to hear.
I see Thomas in the chat, actually.
Yeah, I just said monthly meetings are fine with me. There are two BAM task force meetings and a PBC meeting each month, so I think getting monthly updates is probably fine. So
great.
Okay, monthly meetings it is.
Chair Polk, do we want to schedule this meeting maybe after they have their BAM meetings and their PBC meetings?
I was just going to say, yes, I think that makes the most sense.
Wondering when do you have your meetings?
PBC meets the third Friday of each month.
Okay.
And the BAM task force meets the second and fourth Thursdays of each month.
Okay.
So
what day would make the most sense, Thomas, do you think? Knowing that.
Well, fourth Tuesday is probably fine. I mean, it's since we're meeting on the fourth Tuesday now, if we wanted to keep monthly meetings, then
sure.
I said just have the next meeting on March 23rd would be my suggestion.
Great. That works for me. Any other suggestions or discussion? President Reese?
Would anyone consider meeting a little bit later in the afternoon?
Sure. This is just how it was scheduled out this time, but yeah, we could schedule it later in the afternoon.
But also dependent and contingent on people's schedules.
Absolutely.
If we did something like 3 or 4 o'clock on the third Tuesday, 3 or 4 o'clock, would that work for people's schedules, or are there meetings going on at that point or classes?
Sure. You shared the third Tuesday or the fourth Tuesday, and just ensure that the fourth Tuesday is usually a board meeting, right? So just
Yes, you're right. Okay, then maybe 9 o'clock is it.
What happens at 3 to 4?
I also have a meeting directly after.
Oh, okay.
4, yeah.
Okay.
Bright and early.
Yes. Okay, this is wonderful. Okay.
My concern with having it at 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm flexible, meeting and times and whatever, but just a lot of people who would be participating or certainly listening to what's going on, and hopefully over a period of time participating. 9 o'clock in the morning is when they're getting whatever they do underway.
Sure.
Yes.
And, Alameda is getting his charges underway at that time of the morning. And to me, I sense that it's a little more difficult.
I'm flexible with the time as long as it's before the board meeting. Cindy, thank you. I'm sorry, President Reese, 12 to 1. Does that work for everyone?
Sure.
Lunchtime? Lunchtime and budgets. Yeah, that's fine for me. I'm more than happy to, I'm pretty flexible as well. So I'm fine with that noontime as long as everyone else is.
Oh, okay. We also just got another text.
Yes.
Okay.
And are those, the fourth Tuesday, is that going to be every month, that a monthly meeting from 12 to 1, or are we just doing the March 23rd now?
I thought we said the third Tuesday.
I have fourth Tuesday.
Yeah, it's with both was mentioned.
You want to have it the same day as the board meeting?
We can do the, what do you think, President Reese? Because I know that I think you had preferred this, the third Tuesday, right?
I'll go back to Thomas. Was your original
right? Oh, right.
And the third or the fourth Tuesday?
Right. The original recommendation was the fourth Tuesday, just because today is the fourth Tuesday of the month. If it's third Tuesday, I could probably swing that too. There's district academic senate meetings, first and third Tuesdays of each month, but they don't start until 2:30 p.m.
President Reese, that's also our board agenda reviews. Just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Well, a lot happening.
My life is, I think, as with all of you, our lives are being dominated by meetings, Zoom meetings.
Yeah.
All right. So let's do the third Tuesday. Oh, you know what? Let's do the fourth Tuesday.
Okay.
From 12 to 1.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
Okay. And I believe that there's a text in the chat from President Schnowski.
Yes.
Chair Polk.
It says PFT has a position on these committees by contract. The BP is being changed to reflect that, but we were not included here, is what President Chnosky put in our chat. Do you want to address that, President Reese?
Sure. Once the BP is changed, absolutely. I believe that is in the works and it's almost done. And once it's gone through the process, absolutely, we would love to have you at the meetings for sure.
Great. Thank you very much. Okay, so we have our scheduling, we have some future agenda items, and we have our next meeting scheduled. So it's very efficient. Thank you, everybody. And if we have nothing else, then we can adjourn.
Sounds good. Thank you
Thank
all.
you so much for making the time.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you
you all, everyone.
Take
Take
care. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.